They have just tried to bar President Trump from the Colorado ballot using an unconstitutional maneuver that is a bastardization of the 14th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. This was a provision, Section 3, that was designed to bar Confederate members, people who switched to the Confederacy, from actually being able to serve. That's very different than what's at issue here, to say the least. This is a hollowed out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw, I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing, or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack.
There's a big question that's going viral on Twitter right now, and it's more like a joke than an actual question. But they're asking, why was the statue for reconciliation after the Civil War removed? And why are the Democrats going against so many Civil War statues? Is it because they want to make room for new ones? I'm not an expert into American history, but I understand that taxation without representation is a big thing there. Like it upset your ancestors just a tiny bit. So if you're basically saying that the representative that the people want isn't going to be allowed to get in the race. I mean, he may actually be more popular than the other guy, but no, he shouldn't be allowed to run into the race. Isn't that like taxation without representation if it's allowed to go through? Now, of course, they are saying, well, it's about Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Now, again, I'm not as wise as the journalists and the activists and all the other people, but was Trump actually tried for treason? Wouldn't it make sense that if he actually did cause an insurrection, wouldn't that be treasonous activities? Wouldn't he have to be tried for that? I don't know. Again, I'm not a legal expert. Maybe the New York Times is going to write an article and explain to me how it works. But what I do know is that the article in question has been passed after a civil war, and we're not talking about some people in front of the Capitol built. No, we're talking about actual people taking arms against citizens with loads of deaths. Yeah, it went on for a couple of years. That at least that's what I read in the history books. And after that civil war, this act was passed to make sure that, people who lost don't hold office. And it makes sense. Historically speaking, the loser usually has to accept terms from the victor. And in the case of a civil war, the people who lose, right, they lose certain rights as well. For instance, in the War for Independence against the British Empire. Do you think that if Britain would have won, right, if England would have won, do you think the American founding fathers would be reinstated to the same rights and privileges that they had before? No, chances are the punishment would have been severe. So that's what happens when you lose a civil war. The United States didn't go through a civil war recently, as far as I know, right? And to say that Trump is not allowed to go on the ballot because of this article is very controversial, and many people would suggest that it's politically motivated. Now, what does it serve? I personally believe that it's not going to pass with SCOTUS. I do not think that this is going to be allowed. It's going to be appealed, and it's going to be repealed. But what it does do is it fucks with his donations. There are people who are invested into giving money to politicians, right? They're supporting their campaigns. And a lot of them expect that the person they're supporting would win. So what this does is well, should we support this guy? I mean, he's not even on the Colorado ballot anymore. Do we really want to give him money? Well, maybe let's wait a little bit. Let's see how the appeal goes. And by waiting a little bit, you're making it more difficult for the person to run its campaign. On the other hand, I do believe that, and as we saw in the past, every single time he is indicted, every single time they push more lawsuits against him, he actually becomes more popular, to the point where his mugshot is being sold as merch. Much to the dismay and horror of many activists who are saying, well, maybe he should be sued for copyright. That, like, does he own the copyright for his face? Does he own the copyright for the mugshot? I'm not even kidding. Like, that's what people were going on Twitter that day. But it is making him more popular with his voting base. And as you saw, Vivek came out and had that statement. I wouldn't be surprised if the man gets to be chosen as vice president. But what's even more shocking and interesting is that the Colorado Republican Party itself came out and said, Vivek, you won't have to withdraw because we will withdraw from the primary as a party and convert to a pure caucus system if this is allowed to stand. In other words, like, Trump is not allowed to have his name on the ballot. But what they're saying is like, okay, well, in that case, there will be no more ballots. Like, we will nominate him. So it will probably require another court decision, right? Because, like, you're still following the letter of the law. I'm no legal expert, but I think this is what it means. Like, you're still following the letter of the law. It's like, oh, if he's not allowed on a ballot, that's fine. There will be no ballots. We're just going to nominate him. So you're now into this very interesting political kerfuffle. And again, like, people on the left, they're like, well, he is an insurrectionist. And it's like, sure, but like, to listen to what the press is saying, then to actually listen to the facts, there's two different things. Like, if he was an insurrectionist, again, I think he would be tried for treason. The fact that you don't see such a trial happening leads me to believe that maybe he didn't do it. Like, again, I'm not an expert, but like... and of course, if you were to see this happening in other countries, like, that the United States doesn't have positive relationships with, they would immediately scream, it's like, oh my god, that's a dictatorship, that's an authoritarian system, like, look at Russia, look what they're doing to their political dissidents. But unfortunately, and more concerningly, I get to see these tactics being employed in Western Europe as well. Like, if you look at Germany, they're trying to pull a similar shit with the AfD, like an entire party, not just a person. They're basically saying that, well, in order to protect democracy, the AfD is becoming too popular, way too many people want to vote for it, so we should make sure that they don't get to be in the election, or if they do, like, let's label them extremists, radicalists, so that it's more difficult for them to get money and get support. And all of this seems to be like, the overwhelming thing seems to be over the environmentalism and the immigration shit. Because when you look at the AfD, it's like, well, hold on a little bit. Like, do we not have, like, a number to how many immigrants get to come here, like, legally? Like, should we not set a ceiling? Apparently not. Like, even if you suggest that, it's extremism, right? Like, immigration is like the weather. Like, you can't stop it. It's just, if you know it's coming, you can get out of the way, mitigate, some of the damages that the weather does, but you can't stop it, right? Like, even talking about it, you're an insane person if you think you can stop a storm from happening. Both of the policies that are stemming from this are incredibly unpopular with the people. I mean, we saw at Martha's Vineyard what even the liberals think about migrants. And of course, there are blue sanctuary cities that are now very upset that Texas is busing immigrants to them. The voters don't like it, right? So, like, what do? Well, can you talk and persuade me, the voter? Can you dial back some of the policies? No, the situation is like, let's see who they want to be represented by, and then try to hamper that person. That make it difficult for their representatives to gain office, and we keep things going the same way that they've been going up till now. I don't think that's very democratic, though. I don't think that's what a liberal and just society does. But again, what do I know? Tell me what you guys think, and I will see you in the comment section. Take care.